back to this week's Toad Talk. This is the fifth and final episode in the series. I'm tonight again with Ian Benoist and Joe Paul as we dive back into the closing of the season and understanding more and more about how these beautiful, amazing toads that give us this amazing medicine are how they're surviving, if they're thriving, what the environment's showing, and all the different elements around their life cycle. So, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, welcome, and if this is your fifth time on the talk, you'll have a good idea of where things are headed. So again, we thank you so much, and without further ado, we'll just dive right in. So yeah, thanks guys. Um, yeah, just wanted to bring forward that just before we popped on here, you had shared that the season is basically coming to an end, the monsoon season. So when does the monsoon season officially close? Is there like an official thing, or is it like a weather cycle?
I'll try my version. It basically is kind of made up. In other words,
Okay,
they say it can be occur between June 15th and September 15th. That kind of 4 month window, but it effectively doesn't start when it had significant rain until usually the beginning of July, which that was the case this year, July 2nd. And right now, there's no significant rain in the forecast, and this is lined up to be the third driest monsoon in recorded history for
wow,
Tucson area. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yep.
I mean,
And,
I'm just
my version of it is that I wait until the rattlesnakes come out and give birth. The end of the monsoon season, it almost perfectly times with it gets cold enough, the rattlesnakes come out and give birth, and then the toads disappear and don't see them until next year.
I see, I see. So yeah. So with that being said, have you noticed, especially after having been in this region for the past several years, have you noticed now even more of a shift, or as far as like toad populations, and your sightings of these animals?
No, the toad population appears to be exactly the same. I mean, there are areas that there aren't as many toads, and there are other areas where there are more toads. In general, it's a little bit more difficult to run into them when it's dry out like this because they're only coming out when they absolutely need to feed or drink.
I see. Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you for that. Um, yeah. We also talked a little about mating. And so, since there's no rain, since there's no to speak of, right, and maybe outside of like small pockets, uh, the chance of mating is minimal to none outside of standing bodies of water. Correct. So, have you
Uh,
noticed?
pretty much. I for the most part, I've ran into some toads in water. When they're in water during monsoon season, their behavior changes. The males get actually the females too. The females will start vocalizing, and the males will start wrestling with each other. You know, they'll start clamping down on anything that's moving, try to hump it. So uh, I saw some bodies of water where it was just a bunch of males. There were no females present, and they were very calm. There was no clucking. The like I said, the toads make a clucking noise when a male clamps on sexually to another male. They cluck, and when you hear that clucking, it's go time. You know, the males are all swimming around and just grabbing at anything they can get a hold of.
I see.
So I did see in a couple of places where they are actually exhibiting mating behavior, but for the most part, they were just docile. It was interesting. I noted that a lot of these bodies of water, there were only males. So there was no presence of females. There was no mating behavior. I don't know if that has something to do with it being a dry season. It kind of makes sense. Like, is a female going to want to come out and risk, uh, having kids in an unsuitable or too dry environment? kind of seems to me like they might be a little less apt to go to mate if they're super dry.
Okay, sure. So what I'm receiving is that females are less likely to come out of their burrow if they're not if there's not optimal mating conditions outside of eating. Well, I guess is what you're saying about all the toads.
Uh, that's just an observation that comes from this year. So I don't know if that's a
Okay,
fact or not, but it's a theory that I'm going to start paying attention to because I saw something a little different this year.
got it.
I don't know.
Well, or it might be that the females aren't going to the body of water to leverage mating. They're just focusing on the eating, right? Out under the trees and whatnot. So, but it's true, yeah, that in the water, it's predominantly males.
Okay, interesting. All right. Well, so have you, with that being said, have you seen or observed any toadlets or smaller toads that seem to have hatched this year, hopping around?
Yes, I'd observed a large number of them that were the first wave from the rain that came on July 2nd,
All right.
basically about 4 weeks after that. That was the first wave of toadlets. And excuse me, since then, haven't really seen any because the water's dried up and it hasn't been sufficient to both sustain pools that had tadpoles in them and be sources where mating pairs wanted to deposit more eggs. Excuse me. And Joe and I were both, talking about today. We're sort of not sure. Can the female hold on to the eggs for another season? Does she have to, right, utilize them? And because if we're thinking if they have to utilize them, then they're just going to go for it, even if it's late in the season, even if it doesn't ever make it, just to find out, right? Or if they can hold on to that, they might wait another season and
Well, that's an
bust out the
interesting
eggs
that's
the
an
next
interesting
time.
concept. As I'm thinking about it in relation, I've no idea about the biology of these animals, but are they do they have basically a cycle where they're always producing eggs at some rate, or is there an environmental trigger that triggers them to create or produce eggs?
Sure, I'll,
Do
I'll
you
I'll go
know?
first. I
No.
think that as long as they have the sufficient food and they're sexually mature, which I understand, could be the 2 years old, 3 years old,
Yeah.
and they're female, they're going to have eggs and be able to mate. That's.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding too.
Okay. So yeah. So yeah. So if they're not coming out to find, if there's no water for them to find, they're going to lay their eggs somewhere because they're going to come out of them.
Well, in other words, it might be a rain that's too late in the season or not sufficient enough to sustain what's going to dry out.
Got
So
it.
they may still go ahead and, use that because it's feeding the desert anyway. And,
Sure.
we know they're feeding each other. And so in any case, I think we don't know. We don't know. They're pretty
Okay.
sophisticated, so it wouldn't surprise
Yeah.
me if they
Sure.
could hold on to the eggs. And it's just more like, are they able to shut down the metabolism, whatever of the eggs in their body, and turn that back on when they come back out? It wouldn't surprise me. How's that?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I would admit the extent of my knowledge about all of this is that you can feel the eggs in the females. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not aware of exactly what they do with eggs that are not used, whether they reabsorb them, expel them, or hold on to them until next year. I have no clue.
Got it.
Yeah.
I'll look that up though.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, to your point, Ian. Like the desert is always hungry. So
Yeah, it's always hungry and it's looking to store water.
yeah.
And it uses mushrooms and plants to do that. And we should all remember that in the perfect world, the toad is getting the water from the ants that it eats. It gets the water from the leaves that it grows the fungus on. That it gets the water that it eats. So, like, right, they don't have to drink extra. They don't inherently have to drink extra water. And
Right.
though, unless, like Joe's saying, the conditions are really dry, then they might need water just for drinking beyond mating. or anything, or hiding out, I
Like
guess.
this year, you're saying is pretty dry.
Mm.
Third driest.
Yeah, third driest. Yeah, we saw some toads out there. They were just dry. If they were in the military, they'd be like they drank all their canteens. Their
Yeah.
camelbacks were empty. And how's this? I noticed we saw toads that were coming out in conditions that were towards the cooler, higher side, higher elevation
Oh
side.
yeah,
They
tell us
couldn't.
about that.
They well, we can only intimate so much. But the point is that they were, to me, from my perspective, pushing the envelope of their ecological comfort zone to get splashed on by water because it's so freaking dry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're
What
like,
was the
I'm gonna
temperature?
run
What was the
outside,
temperature
huh?
like?
Well, it's getting into in the low 70s, low
Wow.
70s, yeah. So, yeah.
I'd like to say something about this. I've noticed these dry toads. I'm not collecting from them. Number one, it's the end of the season. They're dry as hell. In fact, when they're really dry, there's hardly any liquid in their glands, so it'll come out dry and chalky. I'm not doing this because I don't want them to accidentally pee or have a stress response. And then it's the end of the year, or it's the end of the season. They don't have any way to get hydrated, and they're going to have to go into hibernation. Uh, a season like this. Actually, one of the last times we went out, I ended up, I found a toad. I just looked around for a little puddle to put it in. Rather than collect from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that's a good lesson for anyone watching. Part of conservation is being aware of the life cycle and what these animals need. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I'd add in that, Ben, that okay, some of these same toads we were talking about, they're in the road because it was cooler. So the road is like a big stone that's been holding the heat from the sun right during the day. And so they don't know the road from the side of the road. And yeah, we saw toads that have been run over on a really super rural road, but it led up, to scientific is a, but anyway, the place it went up to a place where not a ton of people are going on a regular basis,
Got it.
and yeah, so yeah, so some of those toads we moved out the road, and some of the toads we saw, yeah, they've been just run over. It's really sad.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, it's unfortunate, right? Yeah, when it's cooler, they're laying on the ground, they're not moving much. So yeah, has the temperatures been in range as far as typical years? It's just no moisture, as I
Yeah,
understand.
I would say it's been a little bit more on the cooler side
Okay,
this year, which has been nice for me, anyways.
sure. They just they're being cold-blooded animals, right? It slows them down a little, perhaps gives them a more difficult time to get across roads, things like that. Okay, all right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about what, yeah, anything else, other animals that you've noticed have that the toads live with? I mean, I know they live in the kangaroo rat burrows, and one of the interesting things that I remember about that region is it would be like, was it a toad or a kangaroo rat? So, is there kangaroo rat activity that is sort of working in that same way that you're noticing?
Maybe this year I don't really pay much attention to them. I try not to look. You know what I mean? It's yeah. When you first see them, especially if you're doing it off the road, they can look like toads.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed as many this year. I haven't really been paying attention to them, to be honest. I haven't really noticed much of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, my question
Nothing
is sort of
noteworthy.
leading towards like, as it's drier, less activity, like maybe across the board, right? Like with all the
Yeah,
animals, they're just kind of like hiding out in the shade, trying to stay
exactly.
cool, siesta mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something I kind of learned from my time in the desert here, this iteration, Ben, has been that the toad is an apex predator, and it's an apex predator for one reason because no other predator specializes in eating the Sonoran Desert toad.
I
It
see.
might incidental, right? But it's not, nothing else specializes, and that means you've filled out an ecological niche. And yeah, so I think it's you know, if the threat is people and the invasive species and bugs they bring along with it. But we can already know that. Um, yeah, I think you know you're gonna. It's fun to learn the different microclimates. Some places where the toads need to be with the saguaro cactuses, and other places they don't.
Yeah,
And yeah, different altitudes, different slopes of ground, how fast little creeks run when it does rain. And yeah,
sure.
so yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. The yeah, so yeah, what else have you learned this season, Joe, about the environment or the habitat that you hadn't known years prior?
Um, uh, Actually, this year, what's been different is, uh, I would say the best way to say this is looking upstream to find the toads. So, scattered out within the city's, kind of at a lower elevation, and the water, everything's kind of spread out where the toads where the toads go. It's kind of like, this year I kind of followed things upstream and thought a little bit more about where the toads are coming out from, where they're going to be hanging out, considering the fact that it's so dry. And more than likely, if they were going to come out, it was going to be near like a pool of water rather than, finding them along the other known areas that I typically find them when there's a lot of water out.
Sure.
It's kind of changed because of the weather. It changed how I was toting and where I looked. Um, Without giving details, like I said, I don't want to give too much information in the way of collecting,
Yeah.
because I think it's only. I don't think everybody should be collecting, but
No, no, of course
I
not.
will say that these harsher conditions forced me to kind of, yeah, do something a little bit different, and it paid off. I feel like I got, this year was just as successful for me as just about any other year, despite the fact that it was ridiculously dry. Other years, had I not tried something different, I would have been leaving almost empty-handed.
Well,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so it's like what I'm hearing is that it's like the toad, like adapting to the stressors of the environment. To yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Very
Yes.
cool. Yeah. So yeah, if perhaps we can dive in a little to some conservation stuff and um, have and what you've noticed around the efforts that you guys have been participating in, just doing your best to protect, increase the habitat or what is available to them um, to to procreate, to mate, and to yeah, to learn about the process. As I understand it, I've seen some pictures you guys have shared of like tadpoles in little pools and things like that. So have you noticed different, like say like different cycles versus in different habitats or different environments?
As far as raising them.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, this year, this was my first time doing it this year, so I've only tried this with one environment,
Okay.
essentially. Um, but yeah, I will say this has been philosophically educational. Uh, when we first got the toads, it was like, we created a situation that was comfortable, and everything was taken care of for them, and they weren't metamorphosizing. And I believe last time I kind of mentioned the fact that stressing them
Yep.
brought about change, and that's been a very educational to see this playing out on a physical body. How we require stress to change, to grow,
Right. Sure.
to metamorphosize. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Ian, you're kind of disappearing.
Mhm.
writing
Mhm.
myself notes. Yeah,
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The enlightened toad was. Join us.
taking over.
These virtual backgrounds. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
anything you'd like to share on that, Ian? That you've seen?
Yeah, just that the these toads are the tadpole versions of the Sonoran Desert toad are so unique that they can metamorphosize between 4, 6, and 8 weeks, whereas the American bullfrog can take up to 2 years. So it is a really sensitive dial. And like Joe said, they were just spawning it up. We had it where filtered oxygen going in there, not too strong a current, and food and everything. And they were growing bigger, yet they weren't growing. They weren't metamorphosizing, and we just learned all sorts of things. Like they swim oxygen wise like a shark. A shark has to be swimming all the time to get oxygen to flow across its lungs, and it's the same way for these guys. So they more get don't the oxygen starts to go down in the water and they're too hungry, they're not fed well enough, and they can only swim for so long. And so I think we saw them die from in certain cases just die from not having food. But of course we're feeding them and taking care of them. And so then Joe started to stress them. We went from probably about 300 tadpoles to about 50 super strong toadlets that had already gotten to eat mites, and then next was like wingless fruit flies. So that's almost the hardest part. Is they'll eat anything that can fit in their mouth, and at that age and size, there's they need something small.
Yeah, and so and you were saying stressing them in relation to oxygenating the water. So as you reduce the oxygen, it's like a trigger in the body to we can't breathe this water anymore. You got to breathe actual air. Is that really was that what you believe is happening? They're needing to come out of the water.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is there's increased cortisol, and on top of that, there's a need for increased metabolic activity for them to stay alive, because now they have to hustle and move to process more oxygen. And there's something tied into there with the metamorphosis. When they're going through that kind of stress, their body starts adapting to it and they change.
Got it. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was the same. It's the same thing with overpopulation too. I noticed that the difference between there being 300 tadpoles and 100 tadpoles, when there's 300 tadpoles are always constantly bumping into each other, that creates stress, and there's more and more metabolic activity for them to swim around and get their oxygen needs met.
I see. Okay, so you've got they've metamorphosized into toadlets, and now what's next on their life cycle?
On their journey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, essentially, we'd like to fatten them up so they're about 2 inches, but unfortunately, they're not quite there.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's the boxes that I may try playing with to bury a box into the ground to give them something to burrow. They're called burrow boxes. That may give them a little help, but regardless, what I'm thinking of doing with these toadlets, or with a portion of them, is to take them back to a place that I normally collect from that's dead now, just to see what kind of effect it has, over the next couple of years. I hope to start kind of playing around with that. So every year I come down, this is my plan. I'd like to, raise some tadpoles to toadlets, and then kind of pay back. Maybe reseed favorite spots that I collect in, or push boundaries. Go to the edge of their known boundary and see if we can't kind of shift where they're hanging out at. See what they can withstand.
Yeah. Spread the love out.
Yeah, Ben, we're going to give them little, armored vests, so when they go out on all that BLM land and there's all that exploding ordnance, that'll increase their survival. But yeah, that's the only way to do it, is to learn by doing, and I learned so much on their whole life cycle. And yeah, we'll be helping to reseed and restock, and I think that's really the way to do it. Because in a sanctuary model, ultimately you run into the factory farming thing of your own space. They don't want to be
Right.
that close together, and it's better to increase their survivability and then spread them out, and like Joe said, into places that they've been in the past, or at the edges of places that they can be, because now there's changed water sources that are more permanently available. So yeah, and we brought our documentarian, right, Gabe, to come join
Yeah, oh,
us.
yeah.
And yeah, he did a bunch of filming of the bufo, and yeah, and he interviewed Joe, he interviewed me, and
Awesome.
yeah, it was a ton of fun, right? And yeah, what did you think, Joe? Yeah, what did you think about having a documentarian come out and film? What, it was four nights
Well,
he came out. So
yeah, Gabe was great. I enjoyed it, and I'm anxious to see how that turns out. Huh?
yeah, he got lots of footage of the tadpoles and the toadlets, and then toads out in nature. And even we wanted this. He had a drone. He used it last night, and yeah, that was super cool. It's the iconic Arizona sunset going down in the west, and yeah, then interviewed Joe Paul in the desert. It was super cool. So
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I saw some images of that on that's been shared. Lovely. So yeah, it
yeah.
sounds like it was a great time.
So I'll throw out a way to kind of bring this whole five series thing, towards a completion. Is like, what are, between all the three of us, what are some myths, that we want to bust, or want to talk about? Because yeah, I just saw someone on social post an article about this, right? If you guys read it already. Uh, and saying, yeah, synthetic's the only ethical way to go, because the harvesting involves, interacting with the toads, and unfortunately doesn't mention yeast or bacteria or toad glands or whatever. But yeah, I think, to me, if you drink milk, you can't be against ethical milking the toads. that's that's
If
I'll
you
come
eat
down on that
vegetables,
ethics.
it can go all the way to if you're eating vegetables from a farm, you're killing animals.
Oh yeah, because I
There's
got the little rats and bunnies
yeah,
and
I mean,
stuff that live in
we
there.
live
Yeah.
in the universe of equivalent exchange. So there's always a give and take, or a give and receive. And so yeah, yeah, that's a very important um conversation that's happening right at this moment, right? There's people who are preferring synthetics, and those who prefer the natural compound. And I think there's a place for both, and in my own perspectives and opinions. And I think that the most renewable and the most green approach is the natural compound. That doesn't mean it's the only way, but uh, in the realm of conservation, ethically taking care of these animals. I mean, how else would we ever learn about? How else would we ever learn that developments or droughts or human interaction are causing problems for the toads, and it's not harvesting them. Harvesting them, uh, as, as a practitioner, as someone who's done this, like I don't want them to be harmed or killed, because that way I can't come back next year for medicine. I can't harvest medicine from them if they're not alive. So, but people building subdivisions or pumping water from the river runoff. From the river, from the aquifer, is not, they're not thinking about that at all. So really, without individuals doing what you're doing, and without people who are using the actual bufo, we wouldn't know. We would have no idea. What are the conservation efforts like? They're basically around people who are actually working with bufo. I mean, you see the Mexico, the Mexico, like I don't know who did it, but whatever the the university study that they did at
Yeah,
Maps talked
yeah,
about, like, but that's all around use. I mean, the beginning of the conversation was around psychedelic use. So without that, would there be any awareness around the environmental hazards that we're that we're creating?
yeah. No, I don't think so. And that's, unfortunately, we know representative of the drug war, right? And people we know Mexican cartels are growing cannabis illegally right now on BLM lands in the United States, doing environmental toxics damage, exactly the same kind would come out of synthetic if the stuff's not disposed properly. So Joe's mentioned how they're coming up from Mexico and harvesting toad inside the United States. So yeah, this is the perverse incentives of the drug war that this brings forth.
Yeah, it strikes me that conservation just naturally evolves out of collecting. It's kind of similar with big game hunting. I mean, it's not
Exactly.
quite the same analogy, but uh, I do the people that I know that are concerned with conservation or are actually motivated to do something are people who see value in these animals.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're valuable without their medicine,
Sure.
but we're sitting here talking about this for a particular reason.
Well, yeah, of
You know,
course, right?
yeah.
I mean, the beauty here is, like, through education and awareness and um, yeah, in informed informed approach, people can effectively, if they're at their last wits end, their last leg, they can venture their way out to the desert, find a toad, and heal themselves. And with the right instructions, with the right teachings, they can do that safely.
Mhm,
And they're not going to
mhm.
harm or impact the animals, but it's a way forward for everyone. Which you know, in my perspectives of what we're doing at the church and what is so important in the psychedelic movement is usurping the need for someone to be in between me and healing. Right? Nature is providing these resources to us. Without a human, humans are amazing to help guide us, to teach us their own wisdoms and ways, right? But I think it's so important to recognize and to invite in the perspective that this isn't even though it seems like it's, the season's not great, and there's um, you know, subdivisions and all these other aspects who are affecting the populations. There's still an abundance of these animals. If people go in the desert looking for them, they can find one. That's all it takes. One toad provides a medicine for one person, at least. So
All right.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think nature is speaking to us directly through the toad.
yeah. Once you really get aware of their habitat, then you start to find them even when you're not trying to look for them.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
So yeah. I just
Yeah.
went on the desert to do interviews, and there's toads there because we're paying
Yeah.
attention. We're in the toad zone, and the toads are like,
Yeah.
"Hello, hello."
Put the toe down, Ian.
Yes, but yeah, show the person where the hippie touched you. Yeah, show the dog.
Right here.
Exactly. I mean, I think after being out here this season, and nature uses things for lots of different reasons, right? It doesn't have a molecule that just serves one purpose. And I think those glands are both like an appendix in the human body where you store your extra, because they're antiviral and antibacterial. And that's
I see.
really the problem, is if they don't get the water levels right, then certain bacteria and virus eat their skin alive, and it's nothing pretty. It's nothing pretty. So that's their backup, and they're kind of like gel packs, because we noticed, the exudate dried and then applied liquid to again. It basically is like a latex, and its whole job, like everything else in the desert, it seems to be to hold water. So it's some kind of like
Like an
water
emulsifier
retention
or
pack.
something?
What's that?
Is it like an emulsifier oil? Like it holds water inside of it? Because
Uh,
it's more,
Yeah,
as it dries out, it dries into like an oil, correct?
yeah.
yeah, it's
It is.
hydrophilic. The peptides and the alkaloids are hydrophilic. So that's part of the reason where they come with the theory that it has to do with heat regulation as well.
Got it.
The like I said, when you try getting the exudate from a dried out toad, it comes out chalky. You can actually see how it collects water by the consistency of the medicine as it comes out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like and what they notice too is the amount of exudate in desert toads that create it is much more pronounced than in toads in other areas. And this is part of the reason why they believe it has to do with water retention as well.
I see.
So more of the
Cactuses.
substance is produced
Yeah.
to hold the water.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Sweet. Well, yeah. On that note, is you got anything else we want to talk about? Share? Uh, any other controversial toad topics?
Um, yeah,
Well,
you know what?
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to give anybody any type of technique or anything, but I do have a couple of things that I jotted down that I wanted to share for
Please.
people who are collecting. If you are collecting, just a couple of quick little rules for keeping the toads happy and healthy. Number one, you catch them and release them where you find them. When you are handling the toad, keep your body as relaxed as possible. So we have a hunting instinct. Our adrenaline gets going when we're chasing after the toads. The very first thing when you get the toad in your hand is to start working on calming your body down so that the toad can be calm, so that they're less apt to have that stress reaction, which has been proven to weaken their immune system. Don't milk dry toads. Uh, Also, when you set the toads down, don't bowl them. There's a tendency that people have. They think they're dealing with a cat or a dog or an animal that moves with in a different fashion that toads do. When people collect, especially if they're in a hurry or if they feel like they're about to get caught, they'll drop the toads down and they'll bowl them like it's they're releasing a cat that's going to run as soon as it lands. Those animals will skid and roll. Another one, you don't follow those toads into pricker bushes. They get cut. These toads are smart enough to know to hide under things. And if you're collecting, very often they'll run underneath a cactus bush or something like that. And if you try following them in there, they can get scratched and the infections can kill them. Another one, don't groom the toads or pet them when you're done with them. A lot of people are trying to give love to the animals, which is a good thing. You can sometimes dry the gland in order to get a better grip on it, in order to do what you're doing. But people will scrape. That you have to remember the skin of the toad is like lung tissue. It is extremely sensitive. So scraping it, rubbing it, patting the toad, or acting like it's a mammal that likes cuddly things is actually kind of harmful for the toad. And then, yeah, if you can do it, don't handle the toads with bare hands. For a short period of time, not a big deal. But if you're going to be holding it and collecting from it, especially if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to take a certain amount of time. The pH in your skin is enough to cause them to stress, and they will go into that stress reaction, more than likely pee on you, losing their water, et cetera, et cetera. That's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Very, very valuable and useful information. How about you, Ian? You got anything to?
Well, yeah, on the Mythbusters, and I don't even know this person or have any personal connection or animosity. Yet Robert Villa, who's the president of the Tucson Herpetological Society, has a peer-reviewed journal article that says the only ethical thing you should be able to do is to milk toads that got run over, and that's where we're at in science, right? And that seems that's bad scientific advice, by the way, because that's a way to compromise capsules, right? So you have something, urine, feces, some other substance in the body because it got run over, gets smushed into that
Oh yeah.
separate, otherwise normally separated gland. So it's like bad advice, but it's just gross. And I saw a toad that was still alive after it had been run over, hadn't finished dying yet, and he's basically recommending to milk that. And so it's just this we got this crazy virtue signaling scientism, and it's not serving us. And
No.
better to interact with the toads on the ground, like Joe said, so you can get to know them, and then you start to love them and care about them and want to help them thrive and be alive more. And that seems to align with the medicine we all know from what it can do for people. It increases your circle or sphere of compassion, and you get a bigger picture, and you start to get the ethics. We're so individuated that the toads are not thinking about, oh, only 50 of us made it. They're like, their species is kicking butt when those kind of survival rates are occurring. So yeah, the toad has got a lot to teach us.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. We've got a lot to learn. Really wonderful. Wow. Well, awesome. Thank you guys so much for being on it and informing the world on what is up. And thank you, Joe, so much for rounding us out with some of the harm reduction advice around the toads and harvesting. And it's so important to provide that context to people. And in this world of commodification, creating techniques and skills that help people to usurp that system and go it on their own to get their own healing, and the healing for their friends and family is so vital. So again, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in. We love you, and we're going to continue to bring you some rad content, some more tweaks, and some more interesting stuff on the way. So tune in Thursday. We have a conclave coming up, and we're going to talk all about proper preparation for ceremony and getting yourself fully prepared to surrender to your own God. So, yeah, thanks again. Peace, everyone.
Peace.